All this and more today on television's fastest half hour. Speed Weeks at Daytona Beach, Florida, running at full throttle. And in the course of today's motorsports reports from all over the country, we'll focus on Daytona action, including last week's 24-hour Pepsi Challenge and the build-up to next Sunday's Daytona 500. Now, they'll run for the pole in the world's richest stock car race tomorrow, and Ken Squire has a report.
Well, Dave, as we prepare for qualifying tomorrow here for the Daytona 500, there are two questions. One, of course, who's on the pole, and the other is, by how much are they going to break the old track record, Ned?
Ken, I believe it'll be by at least a couple of miles an hour. Benny Parsons ran 196 plus last year to win the Busch pole, but with increase in horsepower, better tires, Goodyear has a new tire here that's working exceptionally well for them, and the better aerodynamic design on the car, particularly the Chevrolets with that slope front end, I think they're going to run faster.
Well, one of the favorites they're talking about, the man who's done so much testing down here of recent, Junior Johnson, the car of Darrell Waltrip that sat on the pole 7 times last year. They are one of the favorites, and of course there's a couple of others out here.
Yes, in fact, there are several others, Ken. You certainly can't leave that team out. I think they've come here really loaded for bear because they haven't won a pole here in a long time. Waddell Wilson, though, is the man to beat. Hale Yarborough will be driving that car number 28 this year. Waddell's cars have sat on the poles the last 4 years here at Daytona, and he wants to make it 5 in a row. But there's a fellow from up in your part of the country that's going to be tough, too.
Indeed. Jeff Bodine. Ken Bingham is the engine builder. They're coming with the same equipment, same crew they had a year ago, and they sit on the pole for the Firecracker 400 as well as for Talladega. And they were 2 miles an hour faster on the superspeedway than anyone else. Many say the Cliff Stewart car will be the big surprise. Now let's go back to Atlanta to MotorWeek Illustrated and Dave Despain.
For the silver anniversary Daytona 500, part of a triple header tomorrow at Daytona International Speedway. That lineup also includes the annual Busch Clash and the ARCA 200. The Clash is typically one of the wildest events of Speed Weeks, and this year should be even wilder. For the first time ever, Clash drivers are allowed to use a different car than they'll run in the Daytona 500. The result, a proliferation of specially built Clash cars, what Darrell Waltrip calls 25-lap time bombs. $50,000 on the line for the winner. The Clash is still the richest racing per mile anywhere in the country. The field comprised of 15 pole winners from last year's Winston Cup events, plus one so-called wild card entry. Here's last year's dramatic finish, and Bob Varsha will be telling us who's on the pole for that race later today. The ARCA 200 is a 20-year Speed Week fixture, highlight of the Automobile Racing Club of America's schedule, and always packed with excitement like this. 45 drivers entered in this year's event include defending ARCA champ Scott Stovall and Bobby Allison's little boy, Davey. All in all, a great weekend for four-wheeled action in Daytona. We'll be back with all the two-wheeled news in just a moment. Grand National Bike Season opened in Houston last weekend, and that Camel Pro Series kickoff lured Kenny Roberts onto a dirt track for the first time in 3 years. Highlights in a moment, but first an up-close look at the man who put America on the world motorcycle racing map. Kenny was U.S. champ in 1973 and 74. Then Roberts went to Europe and became the first American to win the World Championship. He accomplished that not once but 3 times.
You know, Europe has been a big success for me, and the World Championship means a lot to Yamaha and myself. But I think as far as my heart goes, I'd like to come back and win the #1 again in America. And I think that as far as a career goes, I'd like to just step back and watch everybody else.
Here's the youthful Roberts in his American dirt track heyday. In truth, Kenny never wanted to leave the American racing scene, and he still regrets the day he realized his faithful Yamahas would no longer keep up with the Harley-Davidsons that now dominate American dirt track racing.
I didn't beat the Harleys one last time like I wanted to do, and I think that was something that of all the mechanics and all the people that really worked hard on getting that, and I think that I would have liked to have gotten that to sort of finish out the career. I'm not done yet, but I think that's one of the things that was a big goal for me.
Kenny, what about the stories that you squandered lots of money back in those early days?
Well, it's true. I lost a lot of money when I was handling my own affairs because I was handling my own affairs. I'm a racer first, and a businessman last.
180-mile-an-hour motorcycle racing can be dangerous, so how do you deal with the element of fear?
I work in odds, you know. The better the bike is, the less odds I'm going to have that I'm going to fall down. The better that I learn the racetrack, and as easy it is for me to ride the motorcycle, the less chances I'm going to have to fall down. And I think if you don't look at it that way and you race a motorcycle, you're not going to be too successful.
Last year, for the first time ever, you were outspoken in your criticism of your motorcycles. What was the problem in the Yamaha camp?
The biggest problem that I had this year was getting this stuff quick enough. Hey, I need it now. I don't need it a week. And that's a racer. You know, a racer's going to say, I don't know the politics and making things. I don't know that a frame takes 1 week. I need it right now. And, of course, they say, okay. But, you know, it bends both ways. They've got gripes about me, and I've got gripes about them, so it works out.
After 11 years in this business, how's your motivation holding up?
There's no getting around it. I'm not as motivated as I was when I first went to Europe. I wanted to win it the first time out. I wanted to be the first American to win the 500 title, and you know, the desire and the push that I did that year was far more than I can muster up now, because, you know, you're 30 years old, it's just not going to be as crisp. I find myself, or used to find myself, out of control, and going around the racetrack didn't even bother me. I just didn't even think about it, you know, and it was just one of them things. And now you get out of control and you think, okay, now look, you know, you're going to fix the bike now because you don't want to do that again. You just have to make sure the bike's going to be right, and you're going to be right to put in like a 100%, 110%, because to win the world championship right now, you got to do 110%. It's not something that you can go out and ride normal and have the fastest bike and win the race. You got to ride the fastest bike out of control or next to out of control to win the race.
Do you think seriously about retirement and what life is going to be like after laying it on the line out there at 180 miles an hour on a road race motorcycle? Is it going to be hard to come down off that?
Well, it is. Racing a motorcycle at that speed, and it's just something that you can't fulfill anywhere else, and I don't think you can fulfill it in an automobile. The excitement, the high that you get from that just can't be matched anywhere. You know, it's really been good to me racing a motorcycle, and I can't complain about any of the knocks and bruises that I've got, and I think if you can say that after as many years as I've been doing it, it's pretty good.
Well, Roberts was the big attraction at the Astrodome last weekend as the 16th annual Budweiser Wild West Nationals kicked off the quest for #1 in American racing, but King Kenny didn't have any real success. In Saturday's 25-lap short track feature, Texan Terry Poovey scored a popular home state win in his debut with Team Honda. Poovey came from the back to pass Harley-Davidson's Randy Goss late in the race. That's Terry's 7th career win, and rookie expert Randy Green put in a great ride to finish 3rd. On Sunday, 20,000 TT fans were eager to see Kenny Roberts do his thing. Many of them recalled Houston 1980 when King Kenny came back after a 2-year dirt track hiatus to win the race. Still one of the most remarkable Grand National performances around. Carrying #2, Roberts was very impressive in his heat race. He banged his way into the lead, bouncing off the outside berm, then shooting over the jump ahead of a charging pack. Only former Houston TT winner #13 Mickey Fay could stay with Roberts. Here's Mickey, an inside move on Kenny, but no success. The 2-time national and 3-time world champ went on to give the Houston crowd what they came for. Kenny Roberts taking a dirt track checkered flag, and who knows, it may be the last time we'll see that happen. In the main event, Roberts found himself next to the new champ for '83, Ricky Graham, but in the rush to turn 1, Roberts and Graham get together, and both champions go down hard in front of the pack. Roberts was too shaken to continue. Graham got up to the crowd's delight and came back to race again. On the restart, as the field sets sail for turn 1, it's '82 Syracuse Mile winner Bub Schobert who takes the lead, but behind him a couple of impressive performances underway. First, Mickey Fay dives inside to grab the lead, but not for long. Steve Eklund is making one of his patented charges. #8, the '79 Grand National champ, comes from the back row to grab his 15th career win, his 3rd Houston TT victory. Fay holds on for 2nd, and Graham a gritty 3rd-place finisher after that earlier crash. The next Camel Pro Series race, the Daytona 200, Sunday, March 12th. You'll see it live on WTBS. And on Sunday, February 27th, a week after the Daytona 500 stock car race, we'll have flag-to-flag coverage of the Richmond 400 Winston Cup stock car battle. That will be live from Richmond, Virginia, and a special edition of MotorWeek will also come to you live from Richmond. That's 2 weeks from today. IMSA's Camel GT season kicked off last weekend, and the 24 Hours of Daytona proved unique in a lot of ways, not the least of which was the presence of a lot of stock car racers. A.J. Foyt and Darrell Waltrip teamed up at the last minute to drive an Aston Martin, and as Darrell told our Ken Squire, he and A.J. are serious about that project.
In 2 weeks, he faces his biggest test in the Daytona 500 right here on this same track. But the question right now, Darrell Waltrip, is how did you like road racing?
Well, I liked it just fine. I had a lot of fun, and at least I got a stint in the car, a couple hours, and you know, Nimrod, which is the name of the team, it's a biblical term, and it meant long-distance runner. Unfortunately, Nimrod gave out early tonight, or last night, I should say. But it was a lot of fun. I had to do all the night driving, and I'm surprised that AJ's driving in the rain, because there's two things he said he wouldn't do, and that was run at night and run in the rain. So there must be some enticement there for him to be out there.
Apparently, he has a better deal than you do. He just hopped out and got in the first-place car.
No, actually, I was holding all the money, and I told him if we didn't run long enough, I wasn't going to pay him. He's probably trying to make enough money to pay his expenses for coming down here.
Now, the word we've been hearing this morning is that next year you're back here for the 24, and you're going to get Junior Johnson to crew the car.
AJ and I obviously scoped everything out, and we decided that if we did it ourselves, we could do it better than anybody. And I don't know, you know, it's a year away, but AJ said, we're going to build a car, and we're going to come back down here and show these guys how to do it. Hope you're watching, Junior, because we're going to include you in it, too.
Waltrip and Foyt were early retirees from a race in which attrition was a big part of the story. From the start, it was a tough 24 hours. A first turn, first lap crash got this twice-around-the-clock marathon off to a rocky start. Then, one after another, the front runners had difficulties. Bob Aiken's fire-engine red Porsche, the beautiful and very fast Jaguar prototype of Bob Tullius' Group 44 team, the always tough Porsche piloted by four-time winner Hurley Haywood, Bruce Levin, and Al Holbert, and the defending race champion John Paul Jr., all victimized by mechanical problems or crashes while running up front. Pole sitter Bob Wallach, who qualified 4 seconds faster than the rest of the field, broke a couple of turbochargers early, dropping back to 58th place. But through the night, Wallach and co-driver Claude Bellalena charged back to retake the lead, only to find themselves with a new co-driver. Car owner Preston Henn installed A.J. Foyt in his Porsche's cockpit when A.J.'s car packed up, and an outspoken Bob Wallach told David Hobbs he didn't like it.
I'm upset about it because he doesn't know the car, he doesn't know the rain, he doesn't know anything. And we have been working very hard because we had two turbos broken early on, and we were about 12 laps behind. Now we are 1 lap leading, and Mr. A.J. Foyt is driving for the PR. I'm upset about it.
Wallach's hurt feelings notwithstanding, Foyt proved a great addition to the team. After the first red flag for rain in the history of the 24 hours, Foyt cut the fastest lap of Sunday's running, over 126 miles per hour in the middle of a downpour. And together, he and Wallach built an insurmountable lead. When the checkers fell on this 21st running of the 24-hour Pepsi Challenge, Bob Wallach had a 24-hour victory to soothe his hurt feelings. And for the first time since he won Le Mans in 1967, A.J. Foyt went to a sports car victory lane. A tip of the hat to the team of Pete Halsmer, Robert Reed, and Rick Knoop for their GTO class win. They finished 3rd overall in a Mazda RX-7. In the GTU division, Lee Mueller, Terry Visger, and Hugh McDonough took the class win on street radial tires. And the drivers of this Chevy March, who finished 2nd in the 24-hour, lead the Camel GT standings. For a number of reasons, mostly involving licensing, none of the winning drivers were eligible for points. That's the way the leaders rank following that Daytona Classic. Well, I'd like to thank everyone who wrote to tell us that you enjoyed the live TBS sports coverage of the IMSA opener. And we also want to show you highlights of another great race at Daytona last weekend. Jerry Garrett describes the action in the Champion Spark Plug Challenge for IMSA's radial sedans.
More than 50 cars took the green flag at the start of the Champion Spark Plug 100, but most of those were left quickly in the dust as pole winner Dave Jolly pulled away. In the early going, Jolly, driving that red Mazda RX-3, didn't get much breathing space from Craig Ross's black and gold Nissan Sentra or Louis Sirex's red and white Buick Skylark. The racing was just about this close most of the way, with Sirex and then Jolly showing the way. Midway through the race, Sirex took this unplanned excursion through the Daytona Speedway infield. He recovered nicely, mowed down a lot of grass in the process, and came back on the course, only losing one position. Ross fell out of contention, but Sirex managed to pull back ahead with 4 laps to go with this backstretch move. Sirex stayed out in front of Jolly as they started the seesaw final lap. But coming out of the last turn, Jolly made his move, and with this bold outside pass, he pulled even, and then squeezed ahead of Sirex, cut down in front, and Dave Jolly took his first ever series checkered flag. Defending series champ Chuck Ulinski finished 5th. From Daytona International Speedway, this is Jerry Garrett.
Finally, IMSA's inaugural Miami Grand Prix, now just 2 weeks away, shapes up as America's richest sports car race of the year. $175,000 has attracted so many entries, officials say they'll have to limit the field to a whopping 105 cars for a 3-race program. Attention-getting driver combos, Indy star Tom Sneva and Emilio Di Vallota in the Grid Group C car. Mike Andretti replaces A.J. Foyt as teammate to Daytona winner Bob Wallach. And Brian Redmond may unretire long enough to sub for former world champ Alan Jones, who fell off his horse and broke his hip. History of sorts was made last weekend in off-roading when a buggy beat the motorcycles for the overall title. It's almost always the other way around. It happened along the California-Arizona border, where a surprisingly large crowd turned out in unsettled weather for the 10th annual Parker 400. 372 vehicles lined up to take the green flag, but fewer than half that number survived this punishing day-long grind through loops that ran on both sides of the state border. The overall title was a battle between the Class 1 buggies of Marty Lettner and Jack Johnson. Lettner had won this race 3 times in the past 5 years. When he didn't win it, Johnson did. Great action, as you can see right there. Our cameraman got a good view. The race stayed razor close until the last few miles. Then Johnson's buggy suffered a broken rear axle. Lettner went on to win, but his car, too, barely made it to the checkered flag.
It didn't take off from the finish line, that's for sure. Tranny, I lost third gear, clutch was going away, motor was missing pretty much all day. It had the wrong jets in it, and other than that, you know, and the suspension. It only has 12 inches of wheel travel, and everybody else has got more.
Well, despite all those troubles, Lettner was fast enough to score a rare victory for a 4-wheeler over the 2-wheelers. At the finish, he had more than 20 minutes on the other cars, and he was 7 minutes ahead of the top motorcycle team, Chuck Miller and Bruce Ogilvie, on a Honda 250. Among the late starters, Walker Evans and Rod Hall took class wins in the big truck divisions. In the mini trucks, Johnny Johnson won. Big names from other racing series challenged the Parker with mixed results. Roger Mears sprained his wrist and gave way to a relief driver, as did Mike Mosley. 2 other IndyCar stars, Gordon Johncock and Bill Alsop, were mechanical dropouts. Rain last weekend forced postponement of the finals of the NHRA Winter National Drag Races in Pomona, California. That action resumes tomorrow. Quarterfinals in all categories. And looking at the pairings in Top Fuel, some interesting names. Old-timer Jerry the King Ruth meets a real youngster, the legendary Connie Kalita's son, Scott. Muldowney, of course, is defending world champ. And fast qualifier Beck turned the 2nd fastest clocking in drag racing history, 5:52 for the quarter mile. And with all that stock car action on tap this weekend at Daytona, let's go now to Bob Varsha for a report on the Speed Week happenings.
One of the traditional happenings of Speed Week is the draw for starting positions in the Busch Clash. MotorWeek was there as the first driver to step to the podium was defending Grand National Champion Darrell Waltrip.
Are you nervous? No. I think that's well, better than 16.
We're sure Darrell will make the best of his 10th starting spot. The lucky man in this year's draw was Dawsonville, Georgia's own Bill Elliott. And so Bill Elliott has the pole for tomorrow's Busch Clash. In the ARCA 200, also to be run tomorrow, Rick Rowland has set a new Daytona track record when he grabbed the pole at 199.093 miles per hour.
Well, despite what you might think from the press coverage, our champion spark plug racer of the week didn't win the 24 Hours of Daytona single-handedly. The team of Bob Wallach, Claude Bellolina, Preston Henn, and A.J. Foyt share that distinction. But of that quartet, only A.J. is a legend. Only A.J. adds the 24 hours to a career record that already includes wins in the Indy 500, Daytona 500, and the 24 Hours of Le Mans. It's been more than 15 years since A.J. Foyt drove a sports car, that long, too, since he raced in the rain. And in our minds, that makes A.J.'s performance last week something special. Another chapter has been added to one of racing's great stories. A.J. Foyt joins the winning team in the 24 Hours of Daytona, and he's our champion racer of the week. Well, A.J. is now in the running for a Honda Interceptor motorcycle to be presented to our 83 Racer of the Year, and knowing A.J., if he wins the thing, he'll probably show up next March to run it in the Daytona 200 motorcycle race. And some credit for all of this should go to the man who had the nerve to put A.J. in that cockpit. So this week we're pleased to present to the 24-hour winning car owner our still unnamed award, first announced last week, which in 83 will honor the behind-the-scenes supporters of motorsports. Preston Henn had the savvy to go to Foyt before last week's race and arrange for A.J. to drive Henn's car if, in fact, A.J.'s Aston Martin broke. When that happened, Foyt not only helped the team to victory, but his tremendous visibility helped generate more media coverage than the 24 Hours has ever seen before. In the long run, everyone came out a winner. Preston Henn made it happen. Congratulations, Preston. And with that, we're out of time. That's MotorWeek Illustrated for today. I'm Dave Despain. We'll be back next Saturday at this same time.